right, well, thank you very much. Our next segment is going to involve representation from three of our good Wisconsin utilities, and we're going to introduce each of them with a short video from their companies. The three gentlemen with us today are Matt Pagel, who's the Director of Regional Affairs for Xcel Energy, Matt Spencer, who's the Legislative Affairs Director for Madison Gas and Electric, and Joe Haubrich, who is the Manager of Wisconsin Government Affairs for WEC Energy Group. So with that, we're going to start with the Xcel video.
At Xcel Energy, we're not waiting for the future of energy to happen. We're building it right now. In fact, we have a 100-year history of rolling up our sleeves and doing just that. Building, making, innovating, delivering. But we don't just deliver energy. We build tools to help customers manage their energy use, to keep their bills low. We harness the wind, capture energy from the sun, and use hydro and nuclear technologies to stay reliable and efficient. We're leading the charge on clean energy. We're the first major energy company with a vision to deliver 100% carbon-free electricity to our customers by 2050. Our customers want it, we're busy delivering it. And while we're already a leader in renewable and clean energy programs, we're constantly striving to improve. We've reduced our carbon emissions by 38% over 2005 levels, and we're committed to going further, even faster. We're also bringing clean energy to the world of transportation, the biggest source of carbon emissions, by making it easy for our customers to power their vehicles with clean energy. As a company on a mission, our ambitions reach well beyond the energy industry. We're investing in the lives of our customers to build stronger, healthier communities by creating jobs and spurring economic growth. At Xcel Energy, we're not just talking about the future. We're busy building it.
Quickly before Matt gets started, I just wanted to suggest that we're going to let all three of the gentlemen speak, and if you have questions, write them on the little sheet of paper, and we'll take those after each of them has had a chance to make a little presentation. Thank you. Matt?
Thanks, James. Good morning. I guess we're still in the morning, right? I'm Matt Pagel. I think he introduced me as the regional director. I've been with Xcel a little over 8 years, and during that time, as you guys have, all owners of stock probably have noticed, the utility arena has really started to transition. Xcel probably was one of the early adopters of renewables. We moved quicker than most, but part of that is the 8 states that we serve. So Xcel Energy, I mean, most obviously you're all from Wisconsin here, or I'm assuming that. We serve 8 states, so there's an upper Midwest portion that we share all of our costs and benefits. So we have Wisconsin, where we have kind of La Crosse to Ashland, that's our area. We have UP of Michigan, we only have like 8,000 customers out there, so we're pretty small. Then we're pretty large in Minnesota, and then we have both the Dakotas. Those areas all kind of share in our grid cycle. So any generation produced in the Dakotas, we can get a value, or vice versa. So our other states are the south, so we have Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. So as we've kind of looked at, as we've led this charge to first clean energy or renewables and then carbon-free, which is kind of the talking point now. No one talks about clean energy at this point really in the industry. We're really talking about carbon reduction because we have 2 nuclear facilities in Minnesota, which is a carbon-free source, and it's a 24/7 source. But as we started to go down the line on this development, we're probably a little ahead of our peers, but it's based on geography. Wind was one of our first early adoption because the wind, obviously, in the Dakotas, the panhandle of Texas, southern Minnesota, the capacity factor and the amount of return of your wind is a lot higher than if you're building, it's wind in Wisconsin. So as the costs continues to go down, we continue to add more wind in those areas, and then we can bring that wind in to serve Wisconsin residents. So that's kind of where we started. So I mean, we always say that we try to follow, we lead basically by the speed of value, because our customers and their costs are, rates are a huge portion of what we look at and what we face from our customers. They want clean, reliable energy, and that's automatic, but they also want to make sure it's affordable. I think as the video mentioned, we were the first utility to talk about carbon reduction and do 100%. It was a big goal 2.5 years ago. Because of our setup with nuclear, we're probably, that video was a hair out. We are 54% lower carbon emissions in 2020. We have a 2030 goal of 80% that I think we'll meet pretty easily with current technology, especially as long as we're keeping our nuclear facilities, which are 24/7 on. That last 20%, and everyone will talk about this as you look at carbon reduction, that's going to all be on technology. That's going to be innovative, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's small nuclear, whether it's battery storage. And it's not there yet, but if you look at how this industry evolves and how innovative we are as a country, we're pretty confident we're going to get there. We'll be able to go back to the regulators and say they're not going to let us go there if it costs too much, because they're not going to increase bills. But that's where, so when we see our drive path, we kind of see 2030 as, our first marker, which obviously we have 9 years, and then we'll see where we are at that point. A couple other things I wanted to mention is, we talked about, I mentioned bills, and I think this probably is the same for our counterparts. I know we're in this year for a rate case, but we haven't been in for a few years. The average bill in Wisconsin in 2018 was more than it is in 2021. So I know there's been a lot of, there was early costs of when renewables cost more. Well, it depends when you get in and when you buy them and what the purchases are. At this point, renewables for us, and our wind is one of our cheapest resources out there, even without a federal tax credit, because where we're building it. And we call it, steel for fuel, because once you build the asset, any other source, you need fuel, so you have a secondary cost. So we've been able to keep our bills flat or declining a little bit as we go along. We do have, as I mentioned that in Wisconsin, we get to share the power grid. Well, because of where things were built, nuclear's in Minnesota, wind is kind of primary to our west. We do have a Western Solar Mustang project that we've gone to the Public Service Commission, because solar in all of our jurisdictions are about the same, and I think you'll probably hear more about solar projects, because I think we're all up here building, because again, the cost on solar continues to decline over the years, and it's now becoming affordable and much more affordable to build, and it's a resource you can create in your service territory and get to market easy. So we do have the Western Solar project that is going to be 1,000 acres, and it's in kind of Pierce, Pepin County is where the proposal is. The last thing I wanted to kind of mention is, we didn't have this last year. This year, I know we still are dealing with the Delta variant, but I kind of want to mention what we did, because, our COVID response has been a major piece of who we are as a company. Xcel always feels that we're only as strong as the community serves and that we serve, and there's, those communities throughout all of our states suffered as, we've had shutdowns and people not being able to work, and, businesses and people not being able to leave their houses for a period of time. So, we've really gone out of a way to try to help our customers make payment arrangements, ensure the reliable service. We did $20 million of corporate giving to COVID relief during that time. We supported United Way and our other nonprofits to try to help people. And we've pivoted. We've had to pivot because for our business, we couldn't keep people away, right? There are certain people that we got to keep the lights on. So we had to figure out who was deemed essential during this period of time that needed to be working on site and who could work either as a hybrid or work from home. So those are all kind of things we did during that period of time. I'm hoping, like I'm sure everyone in here is, we're kind of moving out of that period. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, and it was in there as well, we think just as renewables 20 years ago were, just coming online, in 2018, for the first time, the automobile industry and the transportation sector produced more carbon than utilities. And I always tell people, when it was the big bad utilities producing carbon, it was very easy to point a finger at. As we get, and as this starts to go to the fact that all of these utilities are producing less and less carbon, and the transportation sector is not, they're going to be the next. You're gonna hear that, and you've probably seen from GM to other companies, not just introducing more electric vehicles, but some talking that they're only gonna produce electric vehicles by 2025. And we think that's gonna be the next area that we're gonna need to be a partner with a lot of these companies to try to provide those services, again, at the speed of value, because if I took a show of hands in here, I'm doubting there's not a lot of people that own an electric vehicle, and there's a lot of people that would look at what the cost is of an electric vehicle versus a conventional car and say, I don't want to do that, there's battery range. But we're going to see it, and we need to make sure that we're ready for it as it comes. So we're looking at trying to help partner both with the car companies and the communities we serve as people want EVs to get 1.5 million electric vehicles on the road by as soon as 2030 in our service territory. For us right now, just if you charge through our program that we offer at night, which is usually when most people charge their car, EVs charging is, if you relate it out, is less than $1 a gallon. So as the cost of EVs go down, if the cost to actually operate an EV is less than operating a vehicle, I think that's when you'll start seeing the tipping point. So I'll be here for any questions as they come up. You guys can write them on a card and give them to James, and thank you for your time today.
My name is Professor Tracy Holloway. I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the Nelson Institute for Environmental Study and the Department of Atmospheric and Oceanic Sciences. My background is computer modeling of the atmosphere, and I'm especially interested in how these advanced computer models can help us make decisions about energy use. And when we're thinking about climate goals, what we're really thinking about is how much global warming can we deal with as a planet. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, has set that level at about 1.5 degrees Celsius. In 2019, MG&E announced a plan for net zero carbon emissions by 2050. MG&E asked us to conduct an independent analysis of the net zero carbon plan. We really came in as independent analysts. This is what we do in science. Science is all about taking a critical eye and using the best available information to solve a problem. We looked at computer model results from around the world that were published as part of a report from the IPCC. What do those computer models tell us that countries like the US have to do between now and 2050 to limit climate change? And what we found is that all of the models showed that significant carbon reductions were necessary. But the rate of those carbon reductions and the 2050 endpoint was right in line with what MG&E had already planned. So MG&E's policy is right in line and even a little more aggressive than what these computer models suggest.
Dr. Holloway's report gives us a valuable input and expert perspective as we continue down our path towards deep decarbonization. We're working to decarbonize our electric generation by growing our use of renewable energy. We're also advancing electric vehicles. Transportation is the leading contributor of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. We're doing everything we can today to cost-effectively reduce carbon emissions as quickly as we can. Our goal is ambitious, but we're committed to it. As your community energy company, MG&E is part of this community. We have a responsibility to those we serve, and we're making decisions every day to achieve our sustainability goals and to meet the needs of our customers and communities who rely on us.
The solutions to reducing carbon emissions from Madison, from Wisconsin, around the world. These are not reliant on any one company doing one thing. This is something where we all have to work together and think about what kind of a community we want and how can we get there in the best way.
Morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Spencer. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for Madison Gas and Electric. And as you just heard, we established a net zero carbon goal by 2050 as a company, shortly after Xcel did. But as mentioned, it's in line and consistent with the IPCC's suggestions on global climate change. Since 2019, our renewable investments have increased by 650%. We have roughly 400 megawatts of solar and renewable energy and battery storage that's either been approved by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin or pending approval by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. In general, it's as Matt said, we're moving rapidly away from fossil fuel to a sustainable energy source. It's been able to provide our customers clean energy. They've been asking for it. One of the more successful programs that we have for the company is our shared solar program. It was recently expanded in 2020. It's completely 100% full right now. There's a wait list for customers that wish to engage with it, but essentially it allows customers to purchase shares of clean energy, renewable energy at the Maury Field Airport and power their homes, power their cars, what have you. But we're also partnering with WEC Energy in a variety of projects. We had two major projects that are coming online, the Badger Hollow solar facility and the Two Creeks solar facility. And then we have multiple projects that are before the Public Service Commission right now. The Red Barn Wind Facility, the Darien Solar Energy Center, the Koshkanon Solar Energy Center, and the Paris Solar Energy Center. We're going to be owning 10% of both the solar and wind generation that's be coming from these sites. And then what's unique about these is these are the first large battery storage facilities in the state as well. So it'll help on non-peak time when the sun's not shining. There'll still be energy that customers will be able to take advantage of. We work hand in hand with a lot of the customers in our service territory. Our service territory is unique. We're the greater Madison area, 160,000 customers, give or take. So in doing so, we're able to partner with large energy users. Recently, we just began construction on the Hermsdorf project, which will provide the city of Madison and the Madison School District with renewable energy. And then we've also partnered with the O'Brien Solar Facility. That is another renewable energy rider project. We own the facility, they buy all the energy from us, and it's a 25-year contract. So the O'Brien Solar Facility is 20 megawatts of solar energy that's sold to 7 large users of energy in our service territory. And it's in our service, and these solar facilities are in our service territory. One of the common reoccurring themes that we've heard from both JP and Matt, and I've seen some of the questions, is electric vehicles. Again, with our service territory, we have a large number of electric vehicles in our service territory in Madison. And one of the fun projects that we've recently began construction on is our EV charging hub. It's going to be in pretty much, if you've been to Madison, just downtown Madison on East Washington Avenue, there'll be 8 DC fast chargers, 8 Tesla superchargers, and it's going to provide apartment dwellers, condo dwellers, fleet vehicles, taxis, EV, basically anyone who owns an EV can go and charge the vehicle there for a significant cost reduction as opposed to a gasoline vehicle. And then on the customer side, for home dwellers, homeowners, The majority of the charging still takes place at the home. We have a charge at home program to help with on-demand pricing. So it incentivizes customers to charge at night where there's less energy being consumed, so you can plug in. We install the charger in people's homes, plug in, and then it guarantees that their car is ready to be driven in the morning. We have a number of residential customers as well for energy conservation, smart thermostat program. Again, it's a very fast-changing sector right now. When I first started working in this 10 years ago, you wouldn't think that you would have 400 new megawatts for a company of our size coming online just 4 years later. Our prices, our residential rates and customer rates have been pretty flat for the past 3 years, and they look to be flat through 2022. And I'm happy to be here. I'll be answering questions after Joel gives his presentation. Thank you.
First now seeing utility scale solar really blossom across the Midwest and the northern climates. So you've had some innovative technology come through, such as tracking systems for solar. So this is cutting edge technology, not only for the industry certainly, but for our company as well.
These investments that we're making are critical to Wisconsin's energy future, and it's all part of our strategy to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, we've already reduced our emissions by 50% since 2005.
So yeah, good morning. The name is Joel Haubrich. I've spoke to the group several years in a row here, or not in a row because we missed last year. So probably the first thing I'm gonna do is just get you caught up to last time we were here. I think the newest development at WEC Energy Group is that our two utilities here in Wisconsin we just got approved for having no rate case this year. It's something that the company takes pride in trying to keep rates steady, and so actually not going in for a rate case and deferring that for another year is a positive thing for our customers, and we're happy that the commission approved that. So since 2019, a bunch of developments at the company has also taken place, not unlike the other utilities. We had a carbon neutral goal, and we changed. We originally were 80% by 2050, and then about a year or so ago, we made the commitment to be carbon neutral by 2050, and we have some interim goals that were also increased. So the goal by 2025 is to be 60% carbon free, and by 2030 is 80% carbon free. So obviously a lot of things have to happen with our fleet to make that happen. So we have retired already about 1,800 megawatts of coal. our Pleasant Prairie plant in the Kenosha County, Edgewater plant, the part that we own of the Edgewater plant, which is in the Sheboygan area, Pulliam plant, WPS has in Green Bay, and the Presque Isle was another plant we had in the Upper Peninsula. That's all been closed. We've announced retirements at the older Oak Creek units, and also part of we're also part of Columbia, which I think Alliant manages, but we've got 300 megawatts there that'll be closing. So between 2017, we had about 5,000 megawatts of coal, and by 2025, we'll have about 1,700 megawatts of coal. Another way to look at that is in 2005, we were 73% coal as far as our fuel. And then we estimate by 2030, we're going to be 8%. So that's a significant reduction of coal. So probably the next thing you're wondering is how we stay reliable and have enough energy to provide our customers. We're modernizing our gas fleet. We're retiring some older gas, specifically in the Wisconsin Public Service territory. And then we're building these smaller gas plants. They're reciprocating internal combustion engines. We call them RICE. Nothing like having an acronym for something in the utility world. They're modular, so they can be scaled up and down based on the size you need. And they're really just giant engines that are run on natural gas. We're building one in Weston, and we're investing in one in the southeast Wisconsin. So that's a development where we're going to make sure we've got enough gas. It's peaking, non-peaking, but it can handle, because it's affordable. It can handle the power when we need it. And then we're, not unlike everybody else, investing a lot of money in renewables. Our commitment is to do about 1,800 megawatts of solar, wind, and battery. And kind of breaking that down, we're doing about almost 1,000 megawatts of solar, over 300 megawatts of battery, 82 megawatts of new wind, which gets us to 1.3. And that's the stuff that's already been announced or is actually in service. And then we're going to have another 500 megawatts or so that is not yet announced, but it's forthcoming. All this does cost money, but the savings from closing coal plants outstrip the cost of the new renewables. So at the very least, we think it's going to be a neutral impact on the customer. And as I said, from our not having to do a rate case, that definitely helps out. We've also, since we last talked in 2019, have invested significantly in non-regulated, mostly wind projects throughout the Midwest. They're not for our customers, they're for other customers. So it's not part of the regulated utility, it's on the unregulated side. We spent over $1 billion today on, 5 wind farms, and we're doing 3 more. So it's over $2 billion. And most of those are committed to companies like Google and Amazon, as they want to have their energy come from a renewable source. We commit the credits and the power to them. So that's pretty much where I'm going to stop. I know, not unlike the other utilities, we were all doing similar things. But the transformation to the clean energy future is moving along rapidly, and it's something that isn't going to stop until we get to zero. So I'll stop it there, and then I'll be happy to answer your guys' questions. Thank you.
All right. Once again, if you have any questions for these gentlemen, write them on the little sheets that are at your table, and Michelle will pick them up, and we'll get them going. So, oh, that's right. These guys can handle it. You might have to turn that on.
Yeah, I'm looking for the button. Test. All right. So we received a couple questions early on. Some of you guys were kind enough to write your questions before we spoke, so we'll be able to answer those. I think this is one that we have never had before. Other than dues, where does the money come for WUI's budget? Which I think is it's an interesting question. And it comes from the companies you see here, Alliant, and I'm not sure, are there any other companies? ATC? So we also kick into the WUI budget, and that's what makes up the organization's funds, so they can do events such as these. And then a bunch of questions on cyber. And I think they're good questions. I don't think any of us are cyber experts. Does anyone want to? Matt had some answers.
I don't know if you're going to keep going through questions. So the question on cyber, there's a couple on, whether we're obviously, it's something each of our companies deals with and has departments on every day. We work at the state level. We've worked with state government. On the federal level, I think all the utilities work together with the federal government. We are constantly monitoring, and it's an expensive cost to continue monitoring our programs, but it's something we're all concerned about, and it is probably, as my executive CEO says, it's one of the things that keep them up the most at night, because it is, a huge risk to all of our companies. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
Want to add to that? No, all I know is our IT people work hard, and they stop a lot of bad stuff, but it doesn't seem to be bad enough that they can't stop it at this point. And so that's about as much as I can tell you. It's something way past my pay grade. Question about solar panels being made in China. I think all our company, as they try to look to do these solar farms, try to procure the best panels possible at the best price possible. I'm not sure where they all come from, but we did a little Google search before we came up here, and it sounds like about 80% of the panels that are used in the United States are made in China. Some of those may be rooftop, rather than some of the larger ones that we're doing. But that's not unlike a lot of industries in our country and where their supply chain is. With COVID, I think there's been a little bit of a shift. American companies have been able to produce more. But it's just crucial that we continue to keep our projects going, staying on schedule, on budget, and we've been able to do that.
Well, and the only thing I'll add is, for most of us up here, are any of you guys building your own solar, or are you? Oh, you say you're not. So, for a lot of these are independent solar companies that come forward, and we look for a bid to find the lowest cost bid by a reputable firm. Those two things need to go hand in hand, obviously, because they need to produce it. But I think Joel's right. I went and looked. Some of ours have been, some of them haven't been, depending on cost and who they use. It's not really much different whether the other thing we get from the other issue that comes up is whether it is a labor contract or whether it's non-union contract in these bidding procedures. But we don't generally, we're paying for the project to get done, but we're not technically paying for like the panels, right? We're we're contracting with different companies that are producing them to put them together and then sell them off. I don't know if Matt's got anything on his.
Do you have a question you want to answer?
I have a couple questions here that kind of all go hand in hand. How much does EV home charging station cost? So at MG&E, for our Charge at Home program, we have a program where we install the charger in your home, and it's about a $20 a month charge. It helps us manage the charging for you, and it charges your vehicle, like I said, at a low cost time that's appropriate, and make sure that when you're ready to get driving in the morning for work or breakfast or what have you, it's ready to go. And then there's a question about hybrid batteries. So I actually drove a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, a company hybrid here. We've started to transition our cars to either full EVs. We have Chevy Bolts that we use. I drove a Ford Escape. It's kind of like a good get-in car for plug-in vehicles. It's the first 38 miles are off the charge. And then the construction of the car is essentially the same thing in terms of the battery as it is a full plug-in electric vehicle. But the cost to maintain it is similar to a regular car, if not cheaper. But that after the battery runs out, you just keep flying down the road.
Question, Elm Road generating plant, it's only 10 to 11 years old. Plans are ready for decommissioning. Please clarify. Yes, let me clarify. So the new units at Elm Road are not being decommissioned. Just the old units, which we call the Oak Creek Power Plant, are being decommissioned. Those were built primarily in the 80s, early 80s. So the new plant, we anticipate running for its life cycle. So I wouldn't imagine that we would announce anything, any decommissioning of the Elm Road plants until 2050 or after. And again, we committed to be carbon neutral, not carbon free. So there will at around that 2050 time, I think we'll have to demonstrate offsets, carbon reductions that are taking place outside of what our plants are doing, and then crediting the carbon we do produce. Now, if technology allows us to be carbon zero in 2050, we will do it. But at this point, there is a question of how we get that last 10% or so out of the system.
So this one kind of went to all of us, and I think we've all dealt with this. What should natural gas customers anticipate regarding technology to provide home heating in order to eliminate carbon emissions? When will this happen? I think this, and I'll let both Joel and Matt talk about it as well, because this is a huge issue in our industry, and it is a very state jurisdiction driver. If you look at California or some states trying to move that way, we all up here, I mean, I think you heard Joel say natural gas is we all consider natural gas a bridge fuel, and that's for power plants, right? We don't see, in some states on the flip side are doing ban the ban, which won't allow states to pass bills to eliminate natural gas home heating, because natural gas is definitely going to be a bridge fuel. It is very carbon. I mean, it's a low carbon emitting fuel. It is reasonable in cost. The reason, what I just asked Joel if you wanted to talk about is, when people look at coal, when you look at old coal and when you look at new coal, the technology and what we were required, and we haven't had any coal in Wisconsin. It goes back to the 5-state system, but the cost of regulation, just as in nuclear is great, but you haven't seen anyone build a new nuclear plant in years, because the cost of the cost of regulation on it, the cost for, I don't know how many scrubbers and different things that we've put on coal plants or that you guys have had to put on coal plants is driving your costs up on top of what that fuel cost is, as I mentioned. So when you're looking at natural gas, is a low-cost kind of bridge fuel. So when people get into this, we know it's going to be an issue at some point, but electric heating is not. It's the cost is too high, and you're not going to get, again, when it's the big bad utilities pointing the finger at us about reducing carbon is one thing.
somebody comes in and tells you to replace your furnace that is perfectly working, that's natural gas, I have a feeling what the response is going to be. So it is definitely going to be a period of time before we see that. And I think it's going to be a transition as as the utilities get more carbon-free, and as the automobile, that to me is going to be the third or fourth leg.
Yeah, we're pretty, we're invested in gas big time at WC Energy Group. I think it's actually larger than our electric. We have more customers in our gas side of the business now than we do in our electric side because of People's Gas in Chicago. So we know, and our company's been pretty strong in voicing concerns with anybody trying to limit natural gas for home heating. You know, it might work if the low is 40 degrees, but if the low is 10 below, no heat pump's gonna do a good job of heating a larger home. So we're confident that we can keep utilizing natural gas for a significant amount of time. And again, that's where these offsets, and we're finding ways to make that happen so folks still have the ability to keep their houses warm in winter.
And we've been working with our local leaders in Madison and Dane County because this has been a reoccurring issue being brought to our company. And like these two just said, I would imagine that Madison may move quicker for new development, but we're working with them to make sure that the infrastructure is there before the new building codes kind of ever go into a place. So I mean, it's a recurring thing I keep saying, but the transportation sector is electrifying. If we're helping them, and we're putting in buses and fire trucks in the city of Madison. So it wouldn't be too shocking at some point if the city of Madison also moves in that direction as well with home appliances, et cetera. So.
I have two more here that I'll answer since they're directed to me right away. And then I have one more, and I'll ask whoever it is to come find me afterwards because I'm not smart enough to answer, but I will track it down for you. The first one was, how did Xcel fare during the recent problem in Texas? Texas is a very unique state. We're in the panhandle of Texas, so we are technically connected. So as I mentioned, we're interconnected in a 5-state region, but we're also interconnected as, you know, in multi-states. It's, how many states are we in with the MISO system, you know? So the Midwest Independent System Operator connects, I think it's 12 states in Canada, if I'm correct.
Well, Wisconsin's the only state that it's fully into.
Yeah. So Texas has, because like everything in Texas, they kind of closed off most of their state. They have one circular grid. So when power goes out and when they had that problem, they can't import that power from outside of state for the most part. We on that upper panhandle are connected, and I can't remember which, it's not MISO, it's a different one on the West Coast. We were connected to that grid. So we fared pretty well because we could still get power to our customers because of that outward connection. And it's one of the big questions Texas is asking. Should they, I mean, if you go back 25 years ago, if you remember, the conversation was always, what do we need, how much extra capacity we need for the utilities. In 97, 98, the brownouts, I think we were at like 18, 20% is what we thought we needed because we weren't interconnected with a national grid. That's basically what Texas is still doing, except they're also not a regulated market. And it's really hard if you're in an unregulated market to build excess capacity. So when they don't build the excess capacity for that really bad storm, and they also don't expect that cold weather, so their wind turbines down there were not insulated like they are up in the Dakotas, so they wouldn't run, it brings in problems. But we held up okay because we had access. The other question I had was, which I think everyone can answer, but how did it determine where you build your wind turbines and solar farms? Wind turbines, I think I mentioned, we look to geography of where the wind blows best, so it's the Dakotas. Specifically, we have to look at where we can access, whether it's, you know, whether it's farmers, how we access land that people want to sell us. Solar, you know, we might own property that we can utilize. Otherwise, we'll go out to look for property when we're working with another company. Some cases, the company producing it might find it. But I'll let you take if you have anything on that.
Yeah, I think with wind, it's a challenge. We've committed to do our renewables here in Wisconsin, so wind is a little more challenging because it's not the Dakotas, which is a lot better. We've got a 82 megawatt wind farm that we're in with MG&E on, and that's southwest part of the state. But it's difficult to site wind in Wisconsin, and I wouldn't imagine that there'll be a lot more. There might be more, but not a lot more. Solar, on the other hand, can be put basically anywhere, especially in farm areas. And we did have a question that kind of dovetails into that, using prime farmland for solar farms. And the way we like to look at it is solar's just another crop. And what we're seeing is there's no lack of farmers that are willing to rent out their land or lease out their land to solar developers rather than farm it. And what we're seeing mostly is it's not unlike, it's individuals who are in their final years of maybe farming land and need to figure out what they're going to do in retirement. And one of the easiest things for them to do in retirement is lease it to a solar farm and take the proceeds and go to Florida. So that's kind of what we're seeing. It does cause issues with neighboring farmers, and it's not usually because of what they see, but it's because the price of that land spiked a little. So if you're renting from another farmer at X dollars an acre and someone just leased theirs for X times 4, then you got to wonder if you may have the right price for your land. So it does upset, I think, some of the economics of land in some of those areas, but in most cases, it's a unique one-off, and it seems to, calm down once the things are built, bermed, and out of sight of neighbors.
Everything that we do for our company at MG&E, we try to work with everyone within our service territory, the landowners that are either adjacent to the solar facilities that we're putting up, or the actual owners of the land in which the solar panels are going on. And as Joel said, it's a guaranteed return for them for the 25 years minimum. So, but we try to be as open and transparent about all of our projects as they move forward, and totally understand. Neighbor next door puts up a bunch of solar panels that is new to the neighborhood or the road. It certainly looks a little different, but the berms are meant to help with that. And like I said, the transparency as a company is important for us.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, we've seen farmers that use it as a hedge as well. Obviously, farming is, a weather-dependent business, and weather seems to be changing more and more. And so we've seen farmers that are using it as a hedge, right? I can put up solar on a piece of my property, and then I can continue to farm the rest of my property, and I have a guaranteed source of income coming in. But it's not really much different. I think back to the first wind turbines, right? It becomes the haves and the haves not. I don't think solar is as big as, when we'd have farmers that would put up wind turbines and the neighbor would be like, I'm looking at the wind turbine and you're getting the $5,000 a month. But it is still an issue. Do you have another one over there?
We've got several about our grid and if electric vehicles will have an impact on that grid. I think the simple answer is we think we can definitely, our electric grid can handle electric vehicles. Obviously, if there becomes penetration above 50%, it may be need to upgrade some of our lines, but that's always a positive for the utility if we're spending a little bit more money on upgrading our facilities. It also makes sure that we have the lights stay on if we're constantly modernizing. So I don't think we're seeing any huge changes to our infrastructure because of electric vehicles. Matt might want to.
Yeah. So as we've looked at this, as we're expecting and trying to promote and work with car dealerships and people to get more EVs on the road, we don't see it as a big. Our studies looked that it could be maybe a 1% to 2% growth. And if you look at what's happened with the utility sector over the last 15 years, the utility sector used to grow at about 2% annually. We've been basically flat for a number of years, which is where you're seeing, part of that is conservation. Part of that is, some of the way that we've been able to manage the grid, and some of it's getting power from the market, where before, when you were more isolated, your prices fluctuated more. Now we can all go out to the market if we need more energy and buy it at a cheaper price. So we don't see it as a huge issue going forward. As a matter of fact, it should be a benefit for, a utility investor like yourself, as, you're always looking for us to find more, investments and gains, rather than, being flat and shareholder prices declining.
We work with our dealerships in Madison too, so help the dealerships educate future EV purchasers on how to charge, when to charge, how to interact with the local utility in Madison. So that's been helpful. And like all things, it sounds kind of weird to say it this way, but the more EVs are on the road, the benefit it is to the rest of the customers, because they're going to be charging at times when you have a flat amount of users, typically at night or early in the morning.
One of the questions just dovetails along what Matt said. Question is, how much of our electricity do we purchase from outside the companies? And I think that the complicated, easy answer is all of it. Now with the MISO market, the Midwest Independent System Operator, we sell all the power we produce into the market, and then we purchase all the power we need into the market. And the market determines what power plants get turned on in most cases. So our lowest cost ones come on first. If all of our low cost ones are on, and then the rest of the fleet is higher cost, say peakers, and we can get power cheaper from someplace else, that's where it comes from. So the self-sufficiency issues that we dealt with in the pre-year 2000 have basically gone away. We have to show we have enough power for our own capacity, but we do not. We sell all our power and we buy all our power. Are we okay? Okay. Couple more questions. Question about, we're doing all these environmental, we're doing all these changes. They obviously benefit the environment and they're benefiting customers. How will investors benefit? Well, I think the easy thing is we're spending, our capital spend is up. We have a goal. Each utility has their own goal and how much they want to spend, and that translates into making money for our investors. The hardest thing to do, I think, utilities, is to continue to grow. That's what why there has been mergers and contractions within the business. But at the same point, if we're finding new ways to produce energy, and those ways are better than the old ways, and they can make money for our customers, then that's exactly what we're going to do, and I think that's what we're all doing. We may have exhausted. Oh, we might have one more.
No, I do not have an answer for this question, but whoever asked me the quality question on Xcel stock, please see me afterwards, because I want to get you an answer and talk to you, because I couldn't quite figure it out.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate your time and your answers to the questions. So at this point, we're going to take a break for lunch. We have a buffet set up over here. In the interest of trying to keep people from crowding together in these days of COVID, we want to just have a few tables at a time go up and we're going to start with the folks on this side of the room and then move our way across. So if you can be sensitive to that, I'd appreciate it. There's plenty of time for lunch, so don't worry about that. We're going to be putting water on every table, so you'll have some water there. There's iced tea near the coffee, so if you prefer iced tea. And let me see if there's anything else. Oh, and we'll have staff available to assist you if you need some help carrying your food or what have you back to your table. So with that, we'll be dismissing tables starting over here on the right-hand side of the room.